Hello, everybody. Welcome to IACommand Rebel High Command Cast. This is TV Boy. This is the Imperial Assault podcast for 2022 and beyond. This podcast is hosted by the IACommand YouTube channel and sponsored by listeners like you through Patreon. If you want to support IA Imperial Assault content in 2022 and into the new year, head over to patreon.com/IACommand and become a patron today. This is episode number 10. I am your host, TV Boy, aka Noah, and I am joined by my co host, the Second Flock, aka Wesley.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year. I hope you had a happy holidays.
Yeah, this should actually be coming out. Let's see, we're recording on the 26th. This should be coming out on the 28th. So right at the end of the year, which is perfect because this episode we are going to be doing a year in review for Imperial Assault 2022 review. So we're going to be kind of going over the highlights of the year 2022 for Imperial Assault, both for IACP and for the main game, although, nothing's really going on for the main game, but we'll be talking about that as well. So in our first segment, although actually, Wesley, how you doing? How's your holidays going?
Oh, they're going great. I saw someone looking for a game yesterday and didn't quite get the time to join them, but I thought it would have been fun to try and join them and have a holiday themed list, like with a Jabba the Hutt as Santa Claus and everything, and maybe post that to the channel. Unfortunately, didn't happen, but that was a little bit of fun I was thinking about yesterday. It was a fun thought exercise,
Nice.
at least.
That's fun. Yeah, I saw your photo on Discord. That was pretty cute with the Santa hat.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into it. I had a pretty good Christmas. 2-year-old, lots of presents. Uh, and I am realizing that as he gets older, the Christmas is going to get harder and harder because it is a lot. But getting it together for all getting all the gifts and making sure the house looks totally clean and nice and there's enough space for everything. But it was worth it.
And hiding the gifts, of course.
Yes, well, that's what storage spaces are for.
Well, I'm glad your Christmas went well. And give it a decade or so, I'm sure it'll start to get a little easier.
Right. Plus, the gifts we get him, I'll be able to play with.
Yeah,
Although I did have a ton of fun.
that's definitely good to look forward to.
Yeah, I did have a ton of fun playing with his train set that I got him with him. That was a lot of fun. So, anyway, all right. Let's get into some Imperial Assault stuff. So, first topic is going to be comms chatter. This is where we take a look at a listener email or a comment from a previous episode's video. The only thing I have from today is a nice comment left by Zombie7979, spelled with an X, which is Happy Holidays. And just wanted to shout that out and say Happy Holidays to all of you listeners. I hope you guys are having a good holiday season as well. And I'm glad you're joining us here in the end of the year and in the new year.
Yep. Happy holidays to everyone watching. And Zombie7979.
All right, well, moving on to our next topic, because I think this is going to be a pretty meaty main topic, so we'll just breeze through these. Rules questions. This is where we feature one of the more interesting rules questions that may have been asked during the week in any of these social media for Imperial Assault. This week we are looking at a very in-depth rules question, so maybe I shouldn't have picked this one, from Herbie, which was basically asking about the difference between kill points and objective points. And the main question was when you score the 1 VP from Jabba's, I think is it Nefarious Gains? Yeah. Does that count as a kill VP or an objective VP in skirmish? And that does count as an objective VP, but I think that leads to the more important question: what's the difference? Why do we differentiate between kill VPs and objective VPs? And I'm now realizing that this could actually be a whole podcast topic, but I think we can just do it real quick here in this segment. Well, Wesley, do you know what the difference is, or why they're counted differently?
Yeah, I saw that thread and I chimed in a little bit, so I got a better understanding. So, really, most of the time, you don't need to worry about the kill VPs versus objective VPs because whoever gets the most VPs wins the game. This is just for tiebreakers. But my understanding is that kill VPs are the victory points that you obtained throughout the game from defeating your opponent's deployment cards. And that sounds a little weird, but what I mean by that is, say, you kill Miggs Mayfeld, and let's say he has an attachment on him worth 1 point. You get the 7 points for Miggs, and you get the 1 point for the attachment. But you don't get. Those are both considered kill VPs. It's more like they're the part of the army that you decimated.
Yeah, just a minor nitpick. It's deployment or victory points gained from defeating figures. Because in the old days you had to defeat every figure on the deployment card to score points, but like you could just kill one stormtrooper now and you'll get VPs from that. And the reason also it's from killing figures is because it also counts the points you score from attachments. So if you kill the
Yeah.
last figure in a deployment group, when you score the attachment, that is also considered to be a VP gained from killing a figure.
So I guess a slightly more nuanced example would be if you have a group of riot troopers that are worth 3 points each. So you kill two, that's 6 VPs, 6 kill VPs,
Hmm.
even though that deployment card costs 7 to deploy. But if the riots had, say, generals ranks on them, and you managed to kill both of them and finish off that deployment card, you would get 3 for each of those you killed, plus the 1 for generals ranks.
Yeah, so then that leads us back to the question of why do we differentiate between the different types of VPs in skirmish? And the main answer for that is for tiebreakers, if you either both players get to 40 at the same time, which can happen, or above 40, or more common is you go to time in the round in like a tournament setting, you run out of time, and at that point, both players have the same VP score. So in that case, the player who scored the most VPs from defeating figures wins the tiebreak. So
Now, you just said something interesting to me. You said that if both players go above 40 at the same time, you go to a tiebreaker. Is
yeah,
that even if they have different amounts of ending VPs?
no. So the main tiebreaker is who has the most VPs. So
Okay.
the actual victory condition is when the game ends, you check to see who has the most VPs, and that's the winner.
Mm, yes.
No matter how the game ends. Usually the game ends when um, one or more players reach 40 or more VPs.
Right.
So then if you're tied, then you check. If you're tied in actual points, then that's when you check who got the most figures from who got the most points from killing figures. And by the way, the secondary tiebreaker to that is like if you both killed the same amount of VPs from defeating figures, the second tiebreaker is you count damage tokens on figures that are still alive, and whoever has like the most damage dealt to defeated figures and that's on like non-defeated figures wins. I'd have to double check that, but it's basically like a damage. You count the damage tokens in play and in defeated figures.
And
Uh,
I think another distinction with kill VPs is that they don't go down even if you spend your VPs, correct?
yeah, so that's something we had to figure out from this spawn from Herbie's question was, well, what happens if you have VPs in your on your score pad, and then but you've only defeated figures, you haven't scored any objective points or like card ability points, and then you go to use like Jabba's order hit and you spend 2 VPs. So what happens then? Did you had to spend VPs from your kill points, right? So does that mean you're gonna have less kill points even if you gain objective points later? And the answer I got was no, because if you read the skirmish tournament rules and all of those sections, there's a part about scoring VPs where it says to players need to make sure to keep their defeated deployment cards and figures and attachments like separate but together so that you can count later how many VPs were scored from defeating those cards. And that was the rationale used to me to justify saying you don't the kill VPs don't change during the game even if you spend from them. They are just a static number based on counting all the figures and attachments that you defeated that game.
Almost like you could go at the end of the game, and if you have a tie in VPs, you then go, okay, now let's count how many things we each killed.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, so that in that case, it really doesn't matter how you spend your VPs. But what people do
Yeah.
is, especially when we're playing on Vassal, because it has those two numbers and then it adds the total above them, is whenever you would spend VPs on things for like Java, Black Market, Hondos, if your opponent's playing Hondo, usually you take those out, you subtract those from your objective points, just so that it's plain and obvious to both players, like who has more kill points at that point in the game when you're playing, so you know who's going to win on the tiebreak if you are going to be
Hmm.
tied.
Yep.
Also,
Yeah,
it
I think
makes it.
someone pointed out.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I think someone pointed out it would be nice if we had an update where the objective VP's portion of the scorecard could go negative
Hmm.
to help keep that track simple.
Yeah, because the other reason to do it that way is so that while you're playing, you can keep comparing your kill points to your opponent's defeated figures, and that way
Right.
you'll know like, oh, they don't match because I'm counting like 8 points over there in his defeated figures pile, but I only have six or whatever. I must have forgotten to score when I killed 3PO, or same thing on the
Yeah.
other side. Opponents forgot to add their points, because you always want to make sure you have an accurate VP scoreboard while you're playing, because that's telling you who's winning, whether you want to play more conservatively or go more aggressive to try and get more VPs so you can win before the timer runs out. I think that's it on that question, right?
Yeah.
Then I think it is time to move into our. Oh no, we have one more. Games we played. Although, have we played any games, Wesley?
I have earlier last week got in one of my league games.
Oh, nice. Oh yeah, I forgot the
Yep.
league is still going.
Yeah, I think some people might have, but we just got to keep poking them because it's coming up to the end of the year here, and
Yep.
that was the time for the league.
So what did you play?
Yeah, so I played my same ISB list again. I did make that switch. We talked on the last episode, and I think we talked about switching Doubt. So I took Doubt out for smuggling compartment because I didn't want to get intel leaked again.
Nice.
And I was playing against Morgan, and he was running a list with Garkan, Jin from Rogue One, I think Jin Urso, um, Cassian Andor, and Zeb, and then Saw Gerrera and the Rebel Sport Package, Gideon R2, C3PO. And we were on Deveron Garrison, and as I was deploying my units, he went first and set up in the bottom zone, I think, red. As I was deploying in blue, I kind of just realized that, he's 8 or 9 squares away from me, and his figures can basically move 6 to 8 and still attack.
Hmm.
So I decided this, with how many figures I had, some of them were going to have to peek out of the deployment zone into his field of view and line of sight. So I kind of just said, okay, this is going to be a fight in the center for the most part. And what I didn't count on was him having enough movement points. I had sent out one of my ISBs first to kind of set up the coordinated raid later on. I knew I was going to get attacked by Garkan, and that's exactly what happened, but I knew I would survive, and he did. What I didn't expect was him to have enough movement points between Cassian's landing ability and Gideon giving free movement points for the Garkan to charge up to my ISB, hit him, and then run into the corner to get the objective and be out of sight. So that kind of happened early on. I feel like I was losing the positioning game. But what was really fun was at the end of round one, I was able to have my second ISB group go, uh, and they had been focused by inspiring leadership. So I had a focused, hidden ISB take a shot at Zeb, did a lot of damage. And then I had the second one take a step or two up, and then coordinate a raid to attack Zeb again. And then I had the second ISB move back next to my Agent Blaze. And then when I went with Agent Blaze last, I had him play new orders on that ISB that moved back so they can go again. I think Morgan might have had one more deployment, so he could have done something about this. But what I then did was have Blaze use motivation, move the ISB 3 towards the center of the map where the action was. And then I was able to use strength in numbers and have that ISB group with their hit-ins and maybe a power token or so go again immediately. And he was not ready for that. Zeb got obliterated.
Oh, so you went
And
Blaze, Strength in Numbers into the ISBs.
yeah,
Remind me, what map were you playing on again?
this was Devron Garrison.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
that's
was
brutal.
Blaze new orders into strength in numbers into SBs.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you readied the ISBs that had already gone with Blaze, and then you were able to activate them immediately with Strength in
Mm-hmm.
Numbers. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's how Zeb, like I said, just completely got destroyed there. I think round two, Morgan tried to take initiative, but I had plenty of negates in hand. Uh, However, he was very adept at positioning his units, and so even as the doors started to open, he wound up being able to keep Garkan alive with like 1 point, and he was able to get second chance on Jin, so she was harder to take out. And I did eventually get Jin. Garkan was in the corner, and I was starting to slowly lose my own ISBs. And then Cassian was able to, from the other side of the map, he had decided to go on his own to get objective points. Um, as Morgan had finally taken up most of my ISBs, and I was kind of left with my B team of Callus, Thrawn, and Blaze. Uh, he had Cassian use sniper configuration and got like a range 10 shot and murdered Callus. And it started to go downhill from there. So in the end, he wound up winning, and that was fine. It was a really fun match. I definitely felt a little more confident with both the command deck and the deployments with smuggling compartment, and new orders had actually been a change. Before that was Price of Glory. But I swapped to new orders specifically, one, because it affects more units, and each of my units are a little smaller, with the ISPs worth only 4 each. But two, I realized that for Blaze's Interrogate, if I want to ever get rid of something like Son of Skywalker, I'm going to need a 3 point card in my hand, and I wasn't running any 3 point cards before this.
Oh yeah, that's pretty clever. Going with new orders, because I can't think of what else, what other 3 point cards you would run, except maybe like hide in plain sight. But
Yeah, probably not going to run that. That action cost is pretty steep.
yeah, so that's a pretty good one then.
Yeah. And I did feel good. Morgan never tried to intel leak me or anything, but I noticed he had it in the list, and he was running a Cassian with all of his brawlers.
Mm-hmm.
I assume for the smooth landing and just to kind of send Cassian off on his own journey while his brawlers did the main fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and then to come around and shoot the sniper configuration. So I think I'm seeing a lot. I've seen a couple tech Cassians in lists that otherwise don't seem to have trait synergy with him, and then I see intel leaks in lists too. So I think it is good that I have the smuggling compartment now.
Yeah, just that one, like one random spy will often bring an intel leak with it, so smuggling compartment's
Mm-hmm.
really useful there.
Yeah, even in playtesting, I was messing around with Loku and Alliance Rangers with Saw for a little bit, and I would bring intel leaks just because of Loku. So I get that entirely. What about you?
I have not played anything. I have been mostly working on um, the custom campaign, which is I haven't really talked about on this podcast, but it's a little pet project, custom campaign with Imperial heroes instead of Rebel heroes, playing against the Rebel Overlord, and it's been I had some momentum after like there was so much excitement for it after that little April Fool stunt I pulled, and so that got me motivated to start working on it and getting playtesting going. And then right when season 7 was like really going hard with playtesting, I had to drop it, and then it's been sitting for a few months. I just haven't been as motivated, but recently I've been more motivated trying to go back to it, and so we've got some updates coming up for that little project. Finally got a
Yeah, I've
second.
seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah, you let me know when you have another mission or so, and maybe that other Rebel command deck ready, and I can try with another group for some more playtesting
Yep,
because those have been fun.
yep. So I've got a second Rebel deck I finally was able to come up with, a class deck. Found some inspiration to finally design that. Um, there's more missions in the folder now. And most importantly, there's a core document in there that's like a rules document for how it all works. And I finally sat down with like my campaign tracker app that I made a long time ago in Google Sheets, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out how much actual XP and like credits I want everybody to have at the end, and then work backwards from there to figure out like the mission rewards for each mission. And so now there's actually a campaign structure that works. And there's enough missions. You could actually play about half the campaign. I think 4 missions through the campaign. So that's in the playtesting folder. I still need to update the heroes. They have a lot of tweaks that need to be made. But yeah,
Hmm.
your feedback, the feedback from your group on that lights out mission was super helpful. Feedback from Josh's people and Josh has been great, and everybody in the Discord channel that have been helping me out, giving me feedback, really been great.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I saw someone had even posted ideas for extra heroes in your game.
Yeah, that was Josh. He can't help himself. Although I did
Well, I won't lie. I've had ideas for heroes myself.
I did like his riot trooper hero. I had not thought of that, and I think I'm probably gonna steal that because that looks like a lot of fun having a hero that has a baton and a shield as 2 starting weapons, and then keying off of that
Ooh.
sounds like really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't read their abilities, but that maybe that's something I should go back to and look at. That sounds fun.
So look forward to that being updated. I'll probably make posts on Facebook and like Board Game Geek once it's ready to go. That'll be version 3.0. And then I realize I have to design 3 more missions before the campaign is complete. So that's going to be a thing. I don't like
You
designing.
could always make them the side missions.
No, it needs to be. I need 3 more core missions.
Hmm.
And I don't like designing missions, but I just gotta open up Vassal,
Really?
the Vassal
I think your
module.
designs have been really great.
I know it's,
Like,
yeah, it's just,
sure, there's, work, but I think that it's been really interesting how, normally in IA, you have the rebels that have to do something by a time limit, and the Imperials that just have to stop the rebels from doing that.
mhm,
And in your version, at least the 2 missions we've played, it's felt like the rebel overlord has to complete an objective, and the Imperials, who are the heroes now, kind of have to stop them while also doing their own objective. I feel
mhm.
like that's been a flip on the roles in some ways in a very fun way.
Yeah, it's either that or there's like a parallel objectives system where the rebels are trying to do something within a certain amount of time, and the Imperials are trying to do something else in the same space, and they're
Mm-hmm.
competing to race to see who can do it first, and also disrupt the other side from doing their thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's more thematic. Yeah, that's something I'm looking to continue. Although I've got some more twists. I've got a mission where it's just literally just you move from one room to the next and slaughter rebels as fast as you can until you get to the main objective. That one is going to come out soon. Um, I've got some ideas coming up for my later missions that I just have to work out on the map. That's the problem, right? Is you have to. It's like if making missions was easy, they probably wouldn't be that good. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I actually have to like go into like play with the map pieces, the map tiles. I also have to like come up with like a hook. That's something. I mean, we can talk about that with like map design or mission design, how to design a mission. But like the thing that I do is I sit down and I think, okay, what's the hook? Like what's the like big thing that like this mission is supposed to represent? Um, that's supposed to like that I can then design around. So like for example, there I mentioned there's a mission coming up where you're on a small ship little map and you go from room to room and you have to defeat waves of enemies, and like that was just based on like how can I make a mission that's all about defeating figures is like the main objective and not some random objective while you ignore figures, because that's something that people say they want to do a lot. And that's how I
Yeah.
came up with that idea. Yeah, so it'll be a while. I'm projecting probably another 6 months before the full campaign is out and ready to go. Um, but for now, there's going to be, I think, 5 missions playable, and you can play from mission 1 all the way to mission 4 as a full, not a full campaign, but like the actual campaign experience. So,
So it's a four mission campaign experience with like a one branching path then.
so no, it's going to be 6 missions. There's going to be one branching mission in mission 2, and then another branching mission in mission 5. And right now I have missions 1 through 4, and there's 5 missions. There's going to be 5 missions available once I get 3.0 out, which will be hopefully this week or maybe next week. But yeah,
X. This is it's been a really great experience to be able to play that, and help inspire those tweaks to get made.
yeah. All right. Well, let's go into our main topic here, which is going to be the year in review. So it is the end of December. It's the end of the year, and I think it's always good to go back and look at what happened during the year, and then we can kind of talk about what do we want for the next year. So for this format, I'm just going to kind of go month by month, and then at the end of each month, I'll send it back to you, Wesley, and we can kind of discuss what happened that month, and then we'll move on to the next one. Sound good?
Hmm. Sounds good.
All right, well, let's get started. So I'll preface this with kind of where we started at in 2022. So late 2021, I think November, season 6 had just been approved, had gone through all the playtesting stuff in the fall, and gotten approval from the community, at least from the vote people who wanted to vote. We announced in December of 2021 that we were going to be moving IACP from a 6 month release schedule to a 9 month release schedule, and that meant that season 7 would be postponed from January to the end of April. And then the current IACP map rotation was Jabba's Palace, Lothal Spaceport, and Mos Eisley back alleys. And for the vanilla game, we still had not gotten any announcements, any communication from FFG or Asmodee or anything like that that the game was going to be continuing. All we had was at the time we had a rumor. We had something from somebody at some Gamma trade show that was like Imperial Assault story is not over. And then we had a rumor from Krabuk that there was going to be new content coming in 2023. Um, so that's where we were as far as the rumor mill for the main game, non ICP game. So January 2022, I think the big one there was we had the designer interview on my channel with Paul and Todd from Fantasy Flight Games. And big thank you to Jake Peterson for organizing that, getting in contact with them. He's a fellow Minnesotan with them, and he was able to get them to come on and talk about designing Imperial Assault and all the kind of like how the sausage is made type of stuff. Um, and then also in January, we had the ICP balance updates that replaced Season 7's release. So we released updates for The Mandalorian, which was the spear one, the Beskar Spear Mandalorian. Overwhelming Impact got raised from 2 points to 3 points, and Guild Programming got raised from 1 point to 2 point. That was the unique card for IG-11. So January 2022. Thoughts on that, Wesley?
Yeah. So quickly with the balance updates, I this is when I was newer to the scene, so I saw that Mandalorian get, pulled back a little bit, and that felt good because I don't even exactly remember what he had before, but it seems like he was a super duper super mega strong back then.
So he was 10
As I was just
points.
starting.
Yeah, he was 10 points. He got Clan of 2 for free, and he had a red and yellow spear attack with Pierce 2. He got nerfed so that
Right.
he had to pay the points for Clan of 2, and then the spear attack got changed to green and yellow with just Pierce 1 built in.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You did change one of the die color and pulled back the Pierce, which you don't think so at face value, but Pierce 2 is a lot. So even then, when it was green yellow with a Pierce 1, it was still a very good attack. Um, but then, so as I was newer, I think I had just discovered Dr. Aphra, and I was looking at cards you could use for her and trying to see what the kind of the best ideas was. And I had this idea to use guild programming with Aphra and maybe build a list around that. Try to get that guild programming to get those extra attacks off a couple of times. And then, or I think that's the one where you focus IG-11, but it looks like a good card. Uh, and then this came out, and I think I later heard that part of the reason guild programming got moved to 2 was because it was getting used with Doc Afron, getting it twice per game was a little too strong. And I was like, oh man, that sounded like a cool combo I never got to try.
Um, yeah, so they were being used together. The real reason that it got nerfed at the time it did, because remember Doc Afra came out in season 5, so a whole season before the current one,
Mm-hmm.
or the season 6 at the time, was because of Bib Fortuna. Um, the reasoning being IG11 is not a hunter. He's just a droid guardian. So he doesn't get really good offensive command cards. So guild programming kind of was what he had. But once
Mm-hmm.
Bib was available to kind of modify both of his attacks with any card, we noticed it was a lot easier for IG to be getting easy to get those kill thresholds, damage thresholds to get kills thanks to Bib Fortuna. And that was
Mm-hmm.
making the combo of Afra for 2 turns of guild programming too powerful. Because before that, he didn't always have a way to get the damage he needed to get a kill, even when he was focused for every attack. But with Bib, you always have that backup plan in hand where, oh, I'm 1 damage short. I can now discard with Bib to get the kill, and that was making him just too efficient at killing things.
Mm. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And, speaking of IG, I know this game and ICP got me to eventually watch The Mandalorian in the second half of 2022. And I just remember after I saw the first episode, I was like, wait, why isn't this guy a hunter? But then you find out later.
Oh yeah, yep. And I think we were playing around with him being like either hunter or guardian, but yeah, it is what it is.
I think I think you guys did go a good route with that.
I think it was because of IG88. We didn't want him to just be a better IG88, so taking away hunter
Mm-hmm.
was our answer.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
well, moving on to February 2022. Let's see. Not much happening here. We had some tournaments each month, so I'm not going to go through those. I did post a beginner's guide to ICP. That was something I'd been wanting to do for a long time. So if you go to my channel, there is beginner's guide to ICP, also for returning players, and it also goes faction by faction. So definitely check that out. Is there anything else in February, or did you want to talk about any of these, Wesley?
Well, I assume that I've probably seen the video series, but it's not in my recollection at the moment. So, just it's a good note that yeah, we there definitely have been tournaments and events going on. Just we're kind of hitting on these bigger topics here than regular events. More changes to the scene.
Yeah, if we have time at the end, I can go through like tournament results, but we'll
Yeah.
just go through we're hitting the big things. So March 2022, we had a map rotation. So that's when we had Deveron Garrison rotated in and Jabba's Palace rotated out for the second time. And then we also had an errata to Moff Gideon from season 6, so that he was able to work in missions where you don't gain VPs but uh, count as having VPs, which was included the Deveron one. And then the big one was we had Adepticon events. So we had 10 players at our Adepticon tournament for IACP, and that was just notable because it was a big in-person event. I mean, it wasn't big in terms of player count, but like prominence, right? Adepticon's a pretty prominent event, so it was great that we were able to get people out there to play in person. So that was exciting, I think. So for March, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, quite a few. So I think we announced Deveron early because we wanted people to be ready for Deveron being the map that they would be playing at Adepticon, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we announced Devron's rotation in February, and people started prepping early. That's right.
Hmm. Yeah, I think even the competitive league was allowed to sub one of the maps for Deveron if everyone in the match agreed to do so.
That's right. I
And
forgot about that.
yeah, and that was the first map in for me playing IACP. So that was the first time I had a map rotation, and I loved Deveron. Like it was cool with the power tokens that you could give out and the exploding crates. But really, I think that's when I started getting into brawlers and things like Garcan, and then starting to focus on like Scum and Rebels together using brawlers. So having a small map like that was a lot of fun for a lot of games, with just running up and beating the snot out of whatever enemies I have, and even better when the opponent has a melee list on their own. But we've done a whole hour long video on Deveron Garrison, so um, we can move on. But it was sad to see Jabba's Palace go. That was a cool one, even if it had some tricky line of sight areas.
Yeah, that's a popular one.
Yeah. For Moff Gideon, I remember being part of the discussion of asking, like, hey, how does this work in this way? And I think the steering committee came in and we had a big discussion, and they're like, well, this is how it's intended to work, but this isn't exactly how it says that it works. So I think that kind of led a little bit to that change.
Yeah, I think Moff Gideon in general, I think we probably should have gone with a different direction. With that ability, we didn't really
Yeah.
think through all the different missions, and that you don't always gain VPs in missions, and sometimes you don't gain VPs till the end of the mission. So I think it was just unfortunate. We tried to do what we could as far as damage control to make him usable, but
I did like the way it got reworded. And I get the point, but yeah, I don't see a lot of Moff Gideons running around. Maybe we're just waiting for the magical map rotation where players are going to get VPs every round on every map. Maybe one day.
yeah.
And then, yeah, Adepticon looked great, and I know they they called you guys up and said that, hey, the last worlds we were going to do, we got all of this prize support from FFG, and we've been holding on to it for 3 years or 2 years. So I think the 10 of you guys got to split a giant pool of proxies and IA loot from FFG, right?
It's not quite how it went down. I mean, the beginning of that story was correct. They contacted us. They said they had stuff from their last tournament they were supposed to have in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
which was supposed to be Worlds, and it was that it's supposed to be at Adepticon in 2020. And so we got excited and we thought, oh, that must be because Worlds 2019 had dice and a trophy and glass tokens and stuff. I mean, not actually glass, but mirror tokens. And so we were like, yeah, awesome. So let's get it started. And they were like, okay, well, and then we were like, can you show it to us? And they're like, well, it's on a pallet. We can't. It's all wrapped up. We can't show it to you until we open it up in March, the day before the event. And we're like,
Hmm.
so we're just kind of going on faith. Um, we were going on also like AMG had gotten the world's prizes from 2020 for like X-wing and Armada, and they were showing those off, and like what those are looking different. So we were like trying to mock up like what we thought it would look like for Imperial Assault, and then it turns out we get there and it's like some store league kit promos, which are just like alternate art deployment cards, and like hero promos for like campaign, like items and heroes, like hero sheets, but in a deployment card size.
Mm,
Um, which is cool, but it's like they didn't have any kind of trophies or dice or anything like that. And so,
mm,
luckily, we had put together like as much prize support as we could because we didn't know if we were going to ever have another in-person tournament for another year, which turns out we haven't. Um, so I sent over a ton of my stuff. Chris Emick, who was one of the founders of IACP, had a ton of extra stuff that he sent and donated. And so we had we had put together prize support for like 24 players, and then only 10 showed up because a lot of people couldn't make it. This was in 2022, early 2022, so there were still travel restrictions. I know a few people that were going to come got COVID right beforehand, so they couldn't come because of that. So the people that did come, they split this huge prize pool, um, which was mostly stuff from the community, and then some stuff from FFG provided by Adepticon, who then got mad at us because we didn't return the like leftover stuff. It was like we paid them a bunch of money to have the tournament there, and then they I guess one of the organizers like kept it and was going to distribute it to other people afterwards, and they're like, hey, where's the leftovers prizes? Give it back. So
oh, the Adepticon wanted to keep some of that loot and give it to other people later?
yeah, they wanted to give it to their people.
What?
Yeah, they wanted to give it out to their like employees or volunteers. So,
That's
which is fine. That's fine. I will say it's fine because we are trying to get we're trying to organize at Adepticon and they haven't responded to me, so that's
so that's
fine.
up in the air for next year.
Um, we're hoping to have Adepticon next year. We have people ready to go to deploy there. Just trying to get in contact with them. So more updates to come
Mm.
on that. Hopefully, we'll have some news soon in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, hopefully. I that's one I considered going to, but I was still newer at the scene, and I had kind of another big event on the same weekend, so that got in the way. But if we did one next year, that might have more opportunity for me to come out and join you guys in person for this. Because it did look like a lot of fun when you guys were posting videos and images during and after the event.
Hmm. And I didn't get to go, but
Oh,
I appreciate that Jake and Josh's partner were there to help run everything.
nice. Nice. But yeah, that's March.
All right, so April 2022, we had an Adepticon at home Vassal tournament. So that was nice. Um, I might go through all the like tournament results and leagues after this, like I said, but let's see. April was the release of season 7. So season 7 preview articles went up in the weeks preceding. April 25th was when we had the playtest release. So it was all available on Vassal thanks to our great friend Trevor, who manages the Vassal, and then Tabletop I had it up on Tabletop Admiral. So season 7 is kind of the big news for April, and that was a ton of work. Just getting those ready to go. I don't know. What should we say about season 7?
Well, it was an entire season.
Let's say for the release. So like, what was
Yeah.
happening around the release of season 7?
I mean, I just think people were really excited. Those preview articles were really fun to look at all the cool new stuff.
Yeah, the previews have been a huge success. I'm glad we started doing that. I think we did that in 4. We started doing that in season 4,
Hmm.
which is something that I brought from like Magic the Gathering, which is it used to just be they did like one article that talked about everything and then they dropped it. um,
Yeah,
or each, I think it
that
was by
week was a really
faction.
exciting week.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So season 7. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think if there are any big changes. Yeah, so season 7 release. And then May, actually, let me get back to Discord, turn that off. May 2022, we had. So that was pretty much just playtesting, and that's kind of what happens with a new season is you kind of just drop everything as far as ICP, and we're just focused on the playtesting process, which included a weekly league, and then I am just like going through game logs that people are submitting and inputting it into a spreadsheet so we can track results. Um, so that was May through September was playtesting. Do you remember anything else happening in May? I couldn't find anything in my searches.
May? No, just playtesting was starting, and we were moving to that 9 month format over the 6 months you guys used to do in the past. And I think it was good that there's going to be more time for the actual competitive season and a little more time for the playtesting too.
Yeah, that's right. So we had been on a 6 month schedule before, so that meant 3 months of playtesting and then 3 months of like competitive tournament play. And now with a 9 month uh, rotation, we were able to do 4 months of playtesting and have 5 months of competitive play. And I think that
Did we
was
later? Did you guys later announce a year-long rotation?
yes. So for those that want to know, we are currently on a year-long rotation, and
Okay.
I think we
Yeah,
announced
right
that.
when that was announced.
That's on my timeline. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, that gave us more time. So with season seven, so in the past, the way the playtesting had worked is we would release it, and then we would go through two updates, two big patches to the cards based on feedback and playtesting results. And then because we had extra time in season so what happened is with season seven, because we had more time to playtest, we were able to do three big patches. So we did 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3 over the 4 month playtesting season. So it's basically one big patch each month of the playtest before putting it up for approval. And I think that gave us more time to like really hone things in and get things right that I think really would have benefited season six especially. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think season seven has been pretty good. Like resounding success. I don't think we've had anything broken or busted. We haven't. We don't have. I mean, there's
We
talks
had
here
a
and
lot of
there.
people upset during the testing period, but I think that's exactly the intent was to iron that out.
Yeah,
I haven't seen anything now that's been broken or busted.
yeah, and that's the point of the playtest. Is like
Hmm.
people are mad, people are questioning, people are like, "What the heck is this? What are you doing?" And then we can make corrections and make tweaks. And having that 4 month cycle instead of a 3 month cycle definitely gave us more time to get that process right. So let's see, moving on, and we're just moving through the playtest season. I think I have more updates for that. But June 2022, the two big things was there was the UK Games Expo tournament in June, and that was in person, 12 players, but it was vanilla FFG Imperial Assault, but they had a custom map rotation instead of the one from 2019. They also had like a special soft ban list, so they banned Rebel Graffiti, and then they had like a bounty on a bunch of different cards like Vader, Jabba, Han Solo. That was like if you played those cards, you had a worse tiebreaker basically. It was supposed to be you had like an extra loss on your sheet, or your each player that didn't play them got an extra one on their extra win on their
Hmm.
record, but it ended up being just better tiebreakers for the people who didn't, which I thought was kind of lame. But it was cool to
Yeah.
see pictures from that event, and we did get video thanks to Alistair over there in the UK.
Nice.
Let's see, and
Well,
then
it does look like it was at least won by someone not running the bounty list.
Yeah, that's true. Arvidas won with Weequay, Vinto, Greedo, Onar, Elite Claudite, Elite Jawa, and Rebel Care Package with R2D2. And he was not playing Jabba, but I think the top four had two banned lists and one and two not banned lists.
Mm.
Um, I think ultimately it just meant it was like a vanilla tournament in terms of how it went down and who won and who got top four. Like the only big deal was no Rebel Graffiti, which meant no scum victory point list. I don't
Is Rebel Graffiti really that as much of a corner piece in that list?
in the scum VP list, I would say yes.
Huh.
That's the main way they do it is Jabba and then Rebel Graffiti are getting all these extra VPs, and then you run Celebration, price on their heads, worth every credit. And I
I
think
think
they
those
run
other
black
ones
market prices.
seems like a lot to throw in, 8 points for Sabine, and then hope you draw Rebel Graffiti and hope Sabine doesn't die and get two, four, six VPs that way.
Yeah, so Sabine, I mean, this is getting into like strategy stuff, but
Yeah, we can talk about that one another time.
Sabine, you don't attack with Sabine. Like that's the thing you learn about Sabine is if you're attacking with Sabine every turn, you're probably playing her wrong and she's probably dying really fast. So you're supposed to just she's a speed 8 figure that can grenade and then you're playing Rebel Graffiti with her.
Mm.
So anyway, that's my thought on that. And then the other big thing in June was there was Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, and there was an Asmodee panel where somebody, I think the very first question that got asked to this panel was, "What's going on with Imperial Assault?" And the answer was, "Imperial Assault is a completed game, and there is no new content coming for Imperial Assault or in development," which is notable because it contradicts what that one guy at that one Gamma trade show said that Imperial Assault story is not over. Um, and I think hopefully it put the nail in the coffin for a lot of people that were holding out hope that there was an official update or expansion or the pipeline was going to reopen. You know, all we're getting now we know all we're getting for Imperial Assault is reprints, thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully at least we're getting that.
And honestly, that's all we need.
I mean, I think it helps even legitimize IACP. If they ever came out with another expansion for this game, oh, that would be weird for IACP.
It would be awkward and kind of weird, but um, even though I mean I do hope they someday pick it up again, because then we'd actually have the numbers of a real game instead of the numbers of a shadow. We're kind of a shadow game right now.
Hmm.
Um, but for people, I think for a lot of people, hopefully it's like if you're waiting, if you're on the fence about IACP or any other custom content because you're like, well, FFG will eventually put out something, and so then if I get into this custom stuff, then it's like we'll waste of time. But hopefully that people get the imperative or the whatever to either jump into custom content with everybody else in the community, or maybe time to move on. But yeah, that was June. July 2022. We had Uskru Entertainment District rotated in for Lothal Spaceport. Good riddance. And then the Imperial Assault Reddit actually went private for actually a couple months, I think.
That was a
Along
long
with
time.
yeah, along with the X-wing and the Armada subreddits. That was weird. We lost a big community hub um, to that. And then July was also my attempt to replace the FFG forums with a Wix forum for the community. Also, that was spurned on by the loss of the Reddit forums. We just felt like we had now was Slack and Discord and like maybe Board Game Geek, which just didn't feel like enough without the subreddit. So that was my attempt
Mm.
to do that, and I will say that Reddit is back, and we didn't need the forums.
Well, I appreciate your work on the forums for that, because if we had lost the Reddit, it'd at least be an extra thing. Um, but I know that you over time posted a lot on those forums to try to get them going. Maybe those would be good articles to place over on Board Game Geeks and or the Reddit over time.
Yeah, I think maybe they should probably go on the ICP blog.
Mm,
Um,
I see people. Yep.
I wish I could have kept those going, but it just was too much work. Because I had been doing a card of the day series and a list of the week series for that, for those
But weren't you
forums.
doing like three lists every week?
Yeah, for one for each faction.
Yeah. And I thought the same thing, like, wow, that's a lot of work. Like if it was me, I would have made a list of the week for each week once.
I was trying to do it like over the weekend. I would write all of them in like a couple
Mm.
hours.
Hmm.
But then I wanted my weekends back. Plus, we started
Yeah.
doing a podcast on the weekend. So,
Yeah, true, true. And
um, but we did get Reddit back. So that was weird because that was like it was one guy who had like created all these subreddits that became the main subreddit for their games. And this guy was kind of a prick apparently, and he was not nice to like he didn't make anybody a moderator. He wasn't nice to anybody while they were open. And then one day he just like decided to troll everybody and shut down the forums, shut down the subreddits, and um, X-wing and Armada. I think Armada got theirs back first, and then they helped X-wing, or maybe it was vice versa. But we ended up waiting a much longer time than the X-wing and the Armada guys to get our subreddit back up. But it finally did get back up, and we have a good group of moderators now for that, including myself. Although I don't spend that much time on it.
yeah. Yeah, I tend to see a lot of what's going on that Reddit, so it was sad to see it go for a while. I know our smaller size meant that it took a little longer to get back, but that was something good when it finally did come back.
Hmm.
And it doesn't seem like it killed the Reddit because we're still getting, quite a number of posts.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was like 10,000 members,
Yes.
but
I Yeah. Do you know what the TMG stands for here?
the miniatures game.
Our Imperial Assault TMG.
Yeah, it stands for the miniatures game.
Oh,
They did that for all
awesome.
the other ones too.
Yeah, people still post about, sales, campaign stuff. Sometimes they ask about skirmish. A lot of times they're posting their painted minis, their collections, and it looks like sometimes we even post our podcast on there.
Did I do that? I think I did that when I first launched it.
Yeah. Yeah, I see one for episode 6 up here from about a month ago. So it's good we have that back.
Yeah.
My favorite is when I scroll across a new meme.
Yeah, you don't see too many of those. Yeah, 10.9 thousand members in that group. So that's probably like the entirety of people that have played the game over the last 5 years. So anyway,
Yeah, that's
um,
true.
all right, moving on to August. So this was big for ICP. This was kind of the last part of the playtesting period, and this is when Mando, the 10-point Mando that we mentioned, got nerfed back in January. He went through like an intense subspec testing here because at the end of after 7.3 came out, a lot of people were like, "Hey, Mando still feels kind of broken." We had a lot of intense discussion on the Slack about Mando and that he's just not fun to play against and he is just too intense for how much he does in an activation. So we did like a focus test at the end. We said, "Hey, mea culpa. We didn't know that. We thought he was pretty balanced at this point. He wasn't like." winning any tournaments. He wasn't. His win rate wasn't excessively high. It was high, but it wasn't excessively high. So he said, let's use this final month. So usually the final month of the playtest period is to let people get a chance to play with the final versions of the cards before we have the vote, so that people can get a feel for what they are before they vote on them. But we use this final month basically. I think the last like 3 weeks we were like, okay, we're gonna test Mando at 12 points. This was after we announced the 7.3 changes. We're gonna change Mando to 12, and you guys all play Mando at 12. One person plays Mando, one person doesn't, and we're gonna figure out if 12 points fixes him, versus he's 10. So this is a 2 point increase. And I think the results were just people were like, nope, he's still just insane. Even at that makes effectively makes him cost 13 with Clan of Two attached, which is the same as Vader. Um, and so we made the call to remove him. So we just thought, we've changed him so many times, we've given him so many chances. It has to stop. Otherwise, it's just gonna exhaust people with how often we're changing him. So August, I
Yeah.
think, right before the community vote, the steering committee announced we're going to be pulling Mando from ICP. He's not going to be coming back in his current iteration, but we might bring him back in the future, with a new design. So,
Maybe
uh,
after season three. Well, I guess that's coming out in like May though. I guess that's not a season 8 thing.
probably no, probably won't be coming out in season 8.
Yeah. But
Go ahead.
that's fine. Because we still have Mando. We have other Mando,
Yep, that was the
and
other
he's a
reasoning
good
too.
figure.
We have 8 point Mando. That was the other another reason to remove him too. Is people mentioned like, we have the 8 point Mandalorian, but it doesn't feel like there's ever a reason to play him when you could just play the better Mandalorian with the spear.
Yeah.
Um,
Spear Mandalorian was just so much. It you have figures like Luke and then Jedi Luke, and they feel different and distinct. And especially in season 7, we now have a reason to see both seen play. With Mando, it felt like, oh, for half an extra deployment points worth of my deployment, my army, I just get a broken version of this 8 point figure. So there's no reason to play the 8 point version anymore.
yeah, I'll say I was on baby hiatus while season 6 was being put together, and so I
Hmm.
wasn't part of the discussion. I'm not trying to put blame on anybody. I'm just saying I don't know. I'm not sure why a jetpack and a spear was justification enough to do a second version of a figure. I think there was just a lot of hype, to be honest. I think everybody was hyped on season 2 Mandalorian, and we just wanted to see content from the shows that were exciting, right?
Sure, that's part of it.
So, um, but yeah,
I think the protecting the child ability on him was a very thematic part of it, though. So that whole second season was about him becoming the protector, and embracing that role.
yeah, which was I
So I can
think
see that being a part of it.
6.0. He had that like generic protector ability, but it was like, I think it was protecting unique figures, and then it got
Hmm.
changed to protecting the child companion. But anyway, I think we made the right call though, because honestly, season 7 post Mando removal has been my favorite season since like season 4 to play. I've just been having so much fun in season 7, and I feel like the list diversity has been higher than ever. And I think Mando being gone has just taken this huge weight off of the ICP format.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think we see a lot more different kinds of lists now.
Um, yeah, and then we had the community vote at the end of August. So everybody voted. I think I don't remember if we put Mando on the vote there. I think we did though,
No,
didn't we? Oh no, we didn't.
no, you guys just took him out.
Okay,
I remember that.
but I think everything else from season 7 did go on the vote, on the ballot, and got approved. I don't think there was anything super controversial, was there?
Leia, a little bit. We had a few that were close. A couple that were close.
Leia got nerfed. Um, let's see. I should have looked this up. I'm just looking up the vote results and see if anything was close to not making it in. Because usually I have an article with the results. Let's see. Most controversial card. Oh, it was the Shore Troopers. That's what it was.
Mm.
Shore Troopers were very controversial because they got nerfed from 6 to 7, which took away all of their strength in numbers and Death Trooper shenanigans with like mortars and flame troopers on them. They had a
Well, but they were well. Okay, you're talking about within the season. They got nerfed from 6 to 7 because in season 6 they weren't always at 7.
Yeah, I was saying within the playtest. So they got
Yeah,
buffed from 7 to 6 for season 7. That was our test to buff them, and then it was they were just bananas with all the strength and number activation shenanigans that were provided by being 6 points and being able to take an attachment or a scrum. What do you call it? A
yeah,
squad upgrade.
yeah.
So they were pretty bananas. I think they were the highest winning percentage. They had like an 80% win rate. It was insane during the playtesting. It was very clear, at least to me, that they could not exist in that form. Um, so that was, but it was controversial because the nerf. We talked about lots of different nerfs for them because it was clear they had to be nerfed. But we talked about a lot of different ways to fix them, and we, I think going from 6 to 7 was definitely the blunt answer, right? Um, it was just like I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure what to say about these other than that. We'll
I think
probably,
going from 6 to 7 was like the mid-season. Let's fix this answer.
yeah, like,
Maybe in the future you guys want to try again with something you have more time to, finagle, finesse, and nuance. If you want there to be a two activation trooper deployment, subtype, have to be a lot of care put into it because of all the shenanigans.
I will say that going from figure cost 4 to figure cost 3 is not a nothing change because now you can
Yeah,
reinforce
that's
them.
true. I mean, I know you guys changed that. We haven't mentioned it here, but yeah. So you did make it so that they can be reinforced, which is nice.
Yeah. Um.
And they do give out less VPs now for being defeated.
Right.
That's something.
Right. You get 2 less VPs from their group overall because they used to
Yeah.
be 7-4 when they came out in season 4. They were 7-4 group. Now they're 7-3. So you only get 6 VPs from killing them instead of getting 8. And then being
And if
reinforced.
you bring one of those attachments, you can now reinforce them even if they both get defeated.
Yep, exactly. So that's really useful for the mortar because the mortar uses them as their like little line of
Spotters.
sight reference points. So being able to reinforce and get one of those back is really nice.
Yeah.
And they still hit pretty hard. They're red green search for +2. They're not. Anyway, short troopers were a thing. Um, I think Leia was pretty. I think people liked Leia after the update
Mhm.
because I think we just raised her from 7 to 8. But and she's also
Yeah.
not been like dominating. She's been popular, but she's not dominating in the tournaments.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to September because
I just wanted to say if you guys want scout troopers at 6, you could always try sentry droids at 6.
sentry droids. You mean the 9 point group?
The 6 point version, the regulars.
if we
If you want
want.
all those shenanigans, you gotta. You're not gonna get something super
Oh,
strong.
you said scout troopers, so you mean shore troopers. I got
um,
confused.
Sorry, yeah, Scout Troopers. So if you guys want Scout Troopers at 6, you can always try regular Sentry Droids.
You mean shore troopers.
They are a 6-point trooper, two-figure deployment card that can work with all of your shenanigans, and I think you can put mortar troopers on them, just not the. I'm
No,
sorry, you can't put mortar troopers on them, but you can put flame troopers on them, I
right.
believe.
Yep, yep, that's true. That's the way to do it. You go with the regulars instead of the shores. Scout troopers were our most requested update for from our poll, so we might be revisiting those in the future.
Yeah, I saw that. They look okay. It's just that we have a million troopers, so what's their niche?
hmm Okay, so that was
I think.
August. Yeah, we'll probably talk about that in a future podcast for sure. So September. So September we started this podcast,
Yep.
which is
Yes, we
pretty
did.
pretty cool. Honestly, it's been great. It's been a great success. I have to say, like I was worried. I started because it just seemed like we needed one for the community. I had a lot of topics I wanted to make videos about, but it's just such a grind, like a recording and editing a video solo, and they just don't come out in the at the rate that I want them to. Um, we haven't had an episode from the Built on Hope guys in like months, and I just reached out to everybody and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a partner to help me do a podcast, but I'm only available like these ridiculous times of the day because I have a baby and a job and I am just very busy." And you responded and you're like, "Hey, I'm available."
Yeah,
And it's
always
been
been into making videos.
yeah,
So, any part of that has always been fun.
and it's been fantastic. I mean, you're a new player. Sounds like you said you started like late 2021, right?
Yeah.
But your insights have always impressed us and impressed the steering committee, and so I was very happy that you responded. And I think it's been really great so far. I mean, I'm still learning how to make a podcast. It's definitely different from making videos. Um, Audio is hard, and I'm struggling, but I think it's getting better. Hopefully, this episode's going to be better in particular. I'm trying a different setup, but I'm just always experimenting, and it's been really good so far. And I really appreciate that you've joined the channel and that you're part of this podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a very fulfilling experience to go out there and, I think the moment that this all came to circle is when we had a newer player join and he asked to do some random matches and I joined and played with him. And at one point he was like, he asked me a question and I'm like, oh, I don't know what their plan is for that. And he's like, aren't you on the steering committee? You're one of the guys that does all the things. And I'm like, well, it sounds like you were, kind of brought on here in part from our podcast since you know me from that. And, I'm not in the committee, but I am glad to be a part of why you're here. And that's kind of what it's all about. It's helping the community.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and then the other big thing in September was ICP. We already mentioned this, but ICP announced that we're moving to a yearly schedule off of the 9 months, which means that season 8 will be coming in April, and that means that we get a whole year. And really, we get because the playtesting I said is 4 months now, so really we're getting 8 months to be able to develop content for the next season. And
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be really good for the folks us who make it because it's a ton of work getting these together. Not just the like brainstorming, but the card creating, the images, the all the documents that go with it. It's mind numbing how much work it is, and being able to have that much more time, like breathing space, like I feel like I've actually been able to have a life outside of ICP this past season, just being able to like relax.
It's a lot of work.
So
I mean,
that's
you have a
been
website, you do a lot for the project, and there is a lot with the project to keep up with.
there's just a ton to do, and and then within the steering committee, we're not always agreeing, so being able to have extra time where we can talk things out and not feel pressured by time constraints to like just ship something, I think it's
Mm.
going to make the product a lot better.
I think I mentioned this before, but if it's going to be a year, that's what it is, right? But if that's the case, is the May through September months the months you want to have people play testing?
hmm Yeah, I think we talked about
Um,
that, and I think we said that was a good. That actually, we ended up on a good month time
okay.
period for that, um, because that way it's done before. Because all the tournaments, like all the events, are happening. Like the big ones are happening from like January through June.
Mm,
Because you have LVO in January, you have Adepticon in March, you have UK Games Expo in June. So having it be from like April through September, I think works out pretty well. And then we talked about like people being at home from college, not having college courses as much work to do for college, like makes it so that people who are online a lot can have time to play instead of being doing their college coursework.
hmm.
I think it works out pretty well.
Nice. Okay, great.
Let's see. October was a sad month because we lost Tabletop TO at the end of October. That was the online website we were using to organize all of our tournaments and leagues, which also means they lost all the data on all of those, which sucks. I mean, I have all the lists still, but like it was so nice to just be able to go like what what events did we have this past few months and see it easily there. Um, and we have since moved to Challenge, which is what we used to use before Tabletop TO, and has been very challenging um, to use. They are,
For the several events I've played since we've moved to Challenge, I think that match I talked about earlier this episode was the first time I actually was able to go in and submit a score, if that's any indication of all the challenge we've had with Challenge.
yeah. And I think that's because the way Derek set that league up was he just added all your names, but he didn't add your accounts.
Yeah, but even with the tournaments and stuff from before that, like that one I joined last minute because we had another person drop, that one I remember I was like, I don't see the button I'm supposed to click here. What am I doing, guys? And someone
Yeah.
would just be like, all right, I input it for you.
Yeah, their website is very so like Tabletop TO was it was very customizable. Everything you could manipulate everything the way you wanted, which is like a TO's dream. Okay, so yeah, that's it was the TO's dream able to do it, what we did with Tabletop TO. Challenge is a lot more restrictive. It's a lot more bare bones. It's a lot more like why would you need that? You can just do it this way. That's easier and we don't have to do anything. Why do you need to have custom pairings? Why would you need to do that? We paired it for you already. It's like, oh my god, I can't change. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
a little bit inside
You
baseball.
know, it's always really sad when you lose a very useful tool for hobby or just in general. Like when I played D&D, there was a site called Kobold Fight Club, and it was just like, here's a list of all the enemies. Just click whichever ones you want to add, put in what your party levels are, and we'll tell you how deadly of an encounter this is. And it was very useful for making, your encounters and planning out your adventure for your players. And that eventually they stopped supporting, which was fine, and then they took it down, which was sad because every substitute that's come up has had, a different UI that is clunky or not all the same features or things you can do. And it seems like we're going through the same thing here with challenge.
Yep. So,
So A sad farewell to tabletop.
But let's see. November, we had the Bespin Tabana facility rotate in, and Mos Eisley rotated out. I think that's been mostly good, right?
Yeah, I've only actually played on that once so far, but it's been good. I think we talked in another episode about a couple matches I did do casually over the past year with a friend on that before it even rotated. So that's been fun. So far, it's been a fun map.
And then December has been pretty slow, other than that, we've had some tournaments happening, Vassal tournaments. And that's kind of 2022.
I did want to ask if you wanted to mention that announcement on the blog for IACP, the in-person initiative
Oh, yeah,
that
that's right.
started this month.
That's right. December, I finally announced in-person play kits, and I mean, I announced those in the last podcast episode of community updates, but it's been a definitely a goal of mine to encourage more in-person Imperial Assault play. I mean, it's great to be able to play on Vassal whenever you want, but really it's the figures on the table that make this game as great as it is. And so being able to have reasons for people to come into the store or into whatever place, physical space they want to be able to play against each other is really important. And I think that's where the community tournament kits come in, that were just announced for December. And I still have to get those finalized so they can actually get shipped, but I'm working on that. And it is a ton of work. Again, that too is just like getting those mocked up, getting them designed, making sure that I'm not stepping on anybody's toes in terms of like, avoiding cease and desists. Uh, you know,
Very
I
important.
I don't want to be. We're in the gray area here, but I want to be able to provide this as a service to people without uh, making it look like I'm profiteering off of somebody else's hard work.
Yep, you made that very clear in the blog post. You're just paying for shipping, handling, and the printing.
Yeah, so we're operating at cost with that, which means I'm operating at a loss because I put many, many man hours into this thing, um, which is which is all good though because I love seeing reports and pictures and stories of people playing at their local store. It just warms my heart and it brings me back to a time before COVID destroyed the world, specifically destroyed in-store gaming, which was my world. Even though I can't,
Let me ask, how long are those kits available for?
they're going to be available all year.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's going to be our store kit for 2023. Um, and I store kit, I mean community kit because it's for anybody, not just people who play at a store. If you want to hold it something at your house, if you want to hold a meetup at your school, whatever, that's for people to be able to do that. And it's gonna be available through the year. So, and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do for 2024. So these are 2023 kits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, and I hope it does encourage play at store. I know I saw that and I was like, oh, well, I know my one friend that doesn't play online in this community because he likes the in-person aspect. Well, if I could just go to a game store enough and maybe hang out with him and find a couple other people, we could get a whole thing going and get this tournament kit.
Yeah, and I'll say that we call them championship kits, but they're big enough you can use them to run a league, which I tell people like if you want to have regular in-person play, like you might want to run a league instead of a tournament and reward people for coming back.
Yeah, yeah, I've always liked that idea.
So that was 2022. I think we've talked long enough. I think that's long enough of an episode without going into like all the lists that won tournaments throughout the year. Um, but it's been pretty good as far as like the
Yeah.
meta.
Yeah, yeah, it has. I think. I did love going through the craziness of the playtesting and some of the wonky things people come up with, and then the things that we need to fix because some things get a little too wonky.
Yeah, the playtesters, the community does an absolutely great job helping us figure out all the different edge cases and synergies that we don't find during our internal playtesting. And
Hmm.
people do a good job of breaking things, and which is like the point, which is what we want. Um, we
I
want
do
people to
miss
break it.
Surge for 3 damage Rancor. I know it was too strong, but the idea of a Surge for 3 damage was fun.
I feel like most of the broken things tend to come from me. I think that was my idea.
You just have high ambitions.
I was just like, this is fun and fine. This is fine. It's fun. And usually it is fun, but it's not fine. Um, all right. Any other thoughts on 2022 or hopes for 2023?
Just hope that season 8 is great.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And
Uh,
maybe some more in-person play would be fun for everyone.
yeah, hoping people get to do that as well.
But I
Um,
think that's it.
all right. Thanks everybody for watching. Remember, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well, so this would be a good one to listen to for that. Although if you're here, you've listened to it already. But check out the Second Flock's channel on YouTube. Post a link in the description on the YouTube video. Leave a comment. What was your favorite thing from 2022 for Imperial Assault that happened in 2022? All right.
You know what? I am looking forward to your villain campaign in 2023.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I'll get working on that.
At your own pace.
All right. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Stay frosty.